Spotlight on those who served. Brought to you by Gray Bar.
After Pearl Harbor was attacked and the United States drawn into World War II, St. Louis native Jim Cella wanted to serve his country. But he was too young, so he waited until high school graduation. And at age 17, with his mother's permission, he enlisted in the Navy. His country needed him, Jim thought, and his desire to avenge what happened at Pearl Harbor is still palpable almost 80 years later.
As far as I was concerned, they hit us. And that's what irritated me, something awful. And I was still in school, so I said, but I had thought about it then, but I wasn't old enough. And so I just let it pass till I got to be 17, then my mother could sign for me.
Jim chose the Navy primarily because he wanted a dry, sturdy place to sleep every night. He didn't envy the troops who spent their nights in a tent or a foxhole, exposed to enemy fire and the elements. Though he does have one complaint about naval service aboard the smaller ships he was assigned to.
The food was terrible. I mean, in this respect, we couldn't carry any refrigeration at all. The ship was too small. So it was dehydrated this and powdered that. And the cooks, if you got a decent cook, you were lucky.
Jim became a motor machinist mate and was responsible for keeping the engines running on ships used primarily for transport of troops and materials to the Pacific Islands, where the U.S. and Japanese forces engaged in brutal, deadly combat. He estimates that about half of the landings on the islands were unchallenged by the Japanese, who were often entrenched inland, dug into positions they spent months, even years, fortifying. The biggest threats to the ships Jim served on came from the skies.
They had a torpedo, was called the Long Tom. It was 22 feet long. And it carried 857 pounds of TNT in it. And what they do, they would drop it, and it would go into the water, and so many revolutions of the prop would set the pin. Well, it didn't do it. This one hit and bounced and went right inside of our ship. Put a hole in it.
What are your emotions, or what are your feelings, or what's the adrenaline like when something like that happens to you?
You don't really have any. You just keep doing your job.
You just do your job.
Just keep doing your job and doing, you think, oh, well, what can I do? Now, well, what could we do?
Jim was on the island of Okinawa in 1945 in his fourth year of service when the second atomic bomb was dropped on Japan, inducing surrender. He remembers feeling relieved and content with his decision to join the Navy and do his part to secure victory in the Pacific. I
wouldn't estimate how many people have come up to me and say, you guys were heroes. I said, no. I said, I told them just what I told you. I was through with school. I saw a chance to do something, and our country's in trouble. And that meant more to us. Because I call it love of country, or what? That's the way we felt about it. Nobody had to force us to do anything.
Jim left the Navy in 1946 and settled in South St. Louis. He and his wife raised 2 children. He lost his wife about a decade ago, but Jim has grandkids and even 11 great-grandkids these days. He's 95 now, and he remembers events of 75 to 80 years ago like most of us remember what happened last week. We should always remember to do this. Jim Cella, thank you for your service.